Hello, hello, hello. Inkwell Beach. Thursday at Cannes. How are we
What's
doing
up?
out there?
Yes.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Megan Cunningham, CEO and founder of Magnet Media. We are a global storytelling studio, and I could not be more honored, humbled, privileged than to be in conversation with the one and only Miss Allie Love. Give it up for Allie, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for spending your time with us as well. Thank you.
So let's jump right in. This is a topic that we hear about from all corners of the community. Creatives, advertising executives, brand leaders, entrepreneurs, athletes, entertainers, all of the above need to think about these days building your personal professional brand. And you've done this better than most. And so I want to just jump right in and say, you've made so many contributions to the community as a multifaceted woman, as pioneer of the slash generation, a term I love, CEO and founder of the Love Squad, world famous Peloton instructor, and now, incredibly, on the Today Show on a regular basis, right? Come on, we all tuning in for morning news. Millions watch you every single week through all your platforms. How are you using that platform to influence your mission?
Absolutely. Once again, thank you all so much. I love this topic because I think it is one of those things that's very trendy, right? Everybody is like, what's my brand? Or how are we going to update our brand? Or what's our new branding mission? All of these things are topic of conversations. But as a part of this last generation, as someone who does multiple things, I've been at Peloton, which is the intersection of fitness, media, and technology. We're global. We have 7 million members. Our flagships in New York and London. I've been there for 8 years. I'm also the VP of Instructor Strategy and Development. So many of your favorite instructors, I work to support them on their career trajectory internally as well as externally, those outside branding moments. And then at the Today Show for the last year, an on-air contributor there talking about all things health, wellness, and fitness, and really, truly staying core to who I am as we talk about personal and professional branding with the Love Squad, where we do women empowerment events. We keep them small so women and folks have time to connect with each other around career building skills, whether it's pivoting in the workforce, re-entering the workforce, or entering the workforce, right? That can be daunting. But what it simply comes down to, and you've heard you've heard profound folks this week, I'm sure. What this simply comes down to when we're talking about personal professional branding, AI, career, any capacity is reputation. And we forget that. Your personal brand moment or branding is your reputation. It's a reflection of how you show up and where you show up and with whom you show up. Your professional brand is your reputation internally within the scope of your career. And the intersection of those two is where you want to live because you can't leave one without the other. And so it comes back to the reputation. And so for me, when I think of all of the things that I do, they intersect at the 3 C's: community, conversation, camera work. And it's essential that my reputation of looking someone in the eye when we have a conversation, saying hi to folks when you walk in, acknowledging someone's presence, no matter what they do, whether it's they're greeting you or giving you $1 million check, it's have I engaged with you on a human level? It's maintaining that level of humanity. And that's something that is just core to my values. And so again, that intersection of personal, professional branding is just my reputation. And I think that is my legacy. If you think about your grandmother, you think about, your favorite person, their legacy is a reflection of how you felt around them and how they treated other people. And so that's what I keep in mind. That's top of my mind and how I engage with everybody that I encounter.
I love that so much. That reputation word is so important and really how we live our values, right? Because I think that's to me like one of the things that strikes me about you. From the moment I first logged on to your first fitness class, it's like you jump right off the screen. You feel like you're in the room with you. And then being in the room with you this week, having dinner, it's just like, this could be, like a real thing. You feel like, oh my goodness, Allie sees me, right? So with that, I think but not everybody can pull that off, right? That's a fact. And not everybody chooses to pull that off. So how do you think about, as you expand and develop more multi-hyphenate elements to your identity, building on your already impressive career, how do you think about like tactically putting one foot in front of the other, but still keeping tight on that reputation and following through on all your amazing commitments? I mean, that description right there, I just got exhausted hearing about what you're doing.
Well, it's seasonal. Don't worry. It's all seasonal. Well, two things that in what you're asking. Number one, I believe in the opportunity of low-hanging fruit. So many times we don't acknowledge the power of low-hanging fruit. Many of us are like, well, if it's low-hanging fruit, then I'm not working hard enough to get it. But I would love to shift that perspective for a second. Your low-hanging fruit are your peers, the people around you that are keen on things that you may not be an expert in. And it's not only connecting, creating that connection with folks that you have access to, but it's leveraging their insight. Right? We sit across from each other, and this is my peer. But your insight is in a specific area, and I need that information. Instead of me going to ask for a mentor at a different level or at a different place, it's like low-hanging fruit. The people around you, they're not only your network, they're not only your peers, but they're your entry point to scaling, to thinking differently. And so, yes, while it's an exhaustive list of things that I do, I am someone who, to my core beliefs, the folks around me, that connection that I create is definitely valuable. And I don't want to get caught up in everything being big or grand or trying to go for someone at a different level. It's like we got folks around us that are absolutely incredible. So why not leverage them and connect with them and support each other? So that's number one. Number two, and I heard this put way more eloquently than I'm going to do it right now, but I lean into what people say I'm good at. I don't know how many of you had, since you were a kid, you dreamed of your career. You knew you were going to be an astronaut, and that nobody deterred you from doing that. I didn't have that dream. I was a dancer. At 10 years old, I got hit by a car. I have a huge scar on my left leg. I almost died. After being hit by a car, I found dance. I fell in love with movement. I started training, and it became something that I was so passionate about. It moved me from Miami to New York. I graduated from Fordham Ailey program with a bachelor's in fine arts and a realization that dancers make no money. And I was like, oh, we can't afford to live here. I don't want to have 7 roommates, maybe 3, but, 7.
Gotta love New York.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was I leaned into what my peers and people that I respected told me I was good at. They said, you really talk a lot. I said, okay. They're like, you should use that. Leverage your soft skills. Find the intersection of hard skills and soft skills and say, where do I excel? In a room of 100 people, what can I outdo? I may not be the best, but I might be top 1%. And that's what I did, is I leaned into those skills that I was good at. I'm great at hosting. I'm a good host. You come over, I'm going to feed you. You will not be hungry. You will not be thirsty. You will be comfortable. If you are hot, I will give you a foot massage. I am that good. My grandma taught me well. And I leveraged that. As a host, someone gets on stage. That's what 11 seasons as the in-arena host of the Brooklyn Nets. And if you don't come to Barclays Center and feel, we may not win, but you will have a good time. You will be entertained in some capacity. And so another value outside of the low-hanging fruit concept is leaning into my peers and folks around me that I trust, telling me and letting me know what I'm good at, and getting curious around that. And saying, oh, I can speak a lot, that's great. Now I'm a host, now I'm on the Today Show, 50 million viewers. It's really not shying away from that. And if that is there's nothing wrong with a linear career. I respect that. I just didn't have it that easy in the sense of easy in the concept, because no career is easy. Easy in clarity. I didn't have that ease and clarity. And so in terms of navigating all of those things, I believe in those two concepts: low-hanging fruit, leveraging the folks around you because they're absolutely amazing, and then lean into what people say you're good at and get curious around those things.
I really love that. And I will say on the first topic, that sort of mutual respect that you put out there, that positivity, it's a very unique quality, and I am extremely grateful for it. I would say, thinking about influence and mission, we are here at Inkwell Beach. This is the center of the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is a topic that's complicated right now in the culture, but you have maintained your mission and celebrate and champion diversity in race and culture through conversation and through sweat. Let's be clear. So you're on the Today Show, and you're talking about body odor. You're talking about all the things. Talk about authenticity, right? You bring it. So how do you think about that mission as your audience expands? This is I would venture to guess that those who watch the Today Show, a subset are Love Squad fanatics, and some of whom are meeting you for the first time, right? This is a broad audience. So how do you think about that championing mission?
So 2 concepts. Something that I often ask myself is, do I want to be powerful or impactful? And there's no wrong answer. And the perfect, ideal situation is that I'm both. But the reality is that sometimes that's not available to me. And so when I approach my rides at Peloton or I approach my segments at the Today Show, it's like, what is that goal? Am I trying to be powerful and stand for something? And in certain spaces where there's less representation, I want to be powerful. I want to be powerful in that you're going to remember me. It may not create a lot of change, but you'll take a mental note of, I've never seen someone in that space do that. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I first started at the Today Show, we did a segment. You see my afro. I love my curls. I wear my natural hair. I get my braids. I do all the things.
Stunning.
I change it up so my husband stays, interested and like, lovely. Keep him happy. I'm just kidding. Not really. I'm not really kidding. But when I started that, you get me. When I started that career, I got really nervous because I was like, what do I do with my hair? How do I do my hair? I've co-hosted the ESPYs. I've done things. I've earned my place here. I'm proud to be here. It's a privilege to be here. And I get on camera and I get nervous and I say, how do I wear my hair so that I don't offend their audience? So that they don't turn the channel when they see me and say, or they don't take me seriously. And I had to make a decision. I said, you know what, I'm gonna stand in my power. I may not be impactful, so I wasn't really focused on like the content itself, because I do create good content and I live it and I'm talking truths. But I stood in the principle of, I wanna be powerful. I wanna show up as myself, because and not even a little girl or a little person watching, it's every person that's watching. I want them to feel and see what it looks like to stand in who you are. And even if you're not noticing that, right? Thank you. And it's not like I'm on the Today Show like, look at me and my hair. No. It's just me showing up. And we did an entire segment around the fact that for the first 3 months, I was going through battles on like, well, do I wear my braids? When I take them out, are people gonna ask me or DM me and say, did you cut your hair? Because we don't understand the concept. So it was this like, am I gonna wear this and teach people about hair? And I decided, well, instead of being impactful, it's not a teaching moment, it's a representation moment. I'm gonna be powerful. And so I lead with that all the time, showing up today. I'm gonna be powerful, I'm gonna be impactful. The difference between powerful and impactful is there's representation. It's a visual concept. You see it, it's memorable, but impactful is you leave away with something that you can tell someone else that you've learned. And so when I do going forward, when I do anything on the Today Show, when I curate my rides for Peloton, my Feel Good Ride, my Sundays with Love, it's impactful. It's letting you know that not everything is perfect and that you're worthy and that you are already good enough. You look good without the outfit, and with the outfit on. With the hair, without the hair, you are already good enough. And I stay true to that message. And that to me is important for inclusivity. And then the second point that I will make in diversity, equity, inclusion, and I feel like this is how, they always say like, how do you eat an elephant? Nobody's eating elephants, but how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? We get so big, and we see now, it was a big movement after 2020, investment in DEI and belonging, right? That's important. All of these companies, and so you see the senior leadership shifting a little bit. A lot of that has gone away in the last year. Those initiatives, unfortunately, we don't have the budget anymore, is what they say. And okay, what is important to me is that no matter where you are and what you do, diversification of content consumption will change your perspective. Your perspective will change your behavior. Your behavior will literally manifest in the decisions that you make personally and professionally. And so when I think of diversity, equity, and inclusion on a personal scale, one bite at a time, is that when I look at my podcasts, when I look at the TV shows, the books, the authors, the producers, what am I consuming? What am I feeding my mind? Is it a diverse perspective from a diverse place, from a diverse group? Go home and look at your bookshelf. Take a self-audit of that. That is the surefire, most simple way to commit to personal diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay? And it's like, anybody eat spicy food? Anybody like hot sauce? I love some pepper sauce. Then you get me. When you first start, you get the scale number 1. You're like, ooh, that's a little spicy. You eat a few days, few weeks, You kick it up. Scale number 2, you kick it up, right? You're moving from some Cholula to Tabasco. Ooh, you love Tabasco. I love that. And that's what happens is you start to get desensitized to the fact that things were homogenous. Things were without flavor for a while. And then you start to build in that. And then you really get into pepper sauce, like grandma's homemade pepper sauce. That's a 10. That's a 10. And you feel good about that. And that's what diversity, equity, inclusion really is that scaling up to say, hey, things aren't one way. It is that perspective. It is that diversity of content consumption on all levels that affect my perspective, that affects how I make decisions, that affects who sits around at that table, and the fact that I notice that this ain't looking right. This ain't spicy, and we got to figure it out.
Those are such powerful pieces of advice. Taking a moment. Through the Love Squad, you are convening and developing this unbelievable community that's driving real change. Share some stories with this incredible community here at CCDC. How are those conversations, the power of convening, the power of you putting your platform and expanding it with this incredible group within the Love Squad, how does that drive change beyond we're all just chatting here?
Absolutely. I truly believe that conversation is the catalyst of change. No one has ever made a big decision without external dialogue, whether with loved ones, whether they heard a panel discussion and regrouped after. That external conversation then becomes internalized, and you have internal dialogue. You start talking to yourself in the best way. And you then make decisions based off on the information that you have, including your emotions and practical information. And so understanding that what happened with Love Squad was in college, I didn't have many resources. So I couldn't go to events like this. I didn't get access to events like this. And that created frustration. So the lack of resources and frustration left me in a position to say, if there's no space that I can get into, how can I create one for folks like me? Love Squad was birthed out of that sheer frustration and lack of resources where I wanted folks to connect at a low to no cost because information is expensive. And not everyone has that entry point. So I created Love Squad, which is an inclusive collective. We do women empowerment groups. We talk about career building skills on ways that you're branding, you're building, you're bossing up, and many capacities. They're usually, I would say the most a Love Squad event cost was $20, and if you ever emailed us, we were like, come on down. And I remember the moment when I knew this was something. So I created this space, and I started writing about it online on a janky website. Like, I'm not that, y'all are way more, trust me, creative than I am. I started, writing about the things that I knew on a janky website, called it Love Squad. Love is my real last name. And one of my friends said, you should do an event. You can't go to these events, and you're talking about the things that you want to learn about. Why don't you host an event? So I reached out. I live in New York City. It's very expensive to do events in many places, but really expensive in New York. So I was able to garner a space for free, some food, swag bag, and I tapped one of my friends and I said, hey, you're doing this really well. Can I do a fireside chat with you? And this was about 10 years ago. And she said, sure, of course, down to help. So I put this Eventbrite up, put it on my Instagram. I had about 3,000 followers, which is a lot of people. Now it's, I'm in the million, but like back in the day, that's a lot of people.
Now you're in the millions. Let's own it.
Which is great. And I was like, even if 5 people show up, this is going to be incredible. I put it on Eventbrite. I had 50 spots because it's a small space because it's free. And I put it on my Instagram, and it went live. And in 15 seconds, all 50 spots were taken, 75-person wait list. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess people want to hang out. Let's do this. We did the event. And that wasn't the aha moment. We did the event. It went really well. I had the space until 8:30 p.m. They were like, by 8:30, get out. I said, okay, I got you. It is like 8:27. I was like, hey, y'all got to go. I cannot afford anything. These folks, not only in the networking section, were connecting and having meaningful conversation. It led to the streets of New York. Now we're a fire hazard. We're literally taking up corners of the space in New York City, having conversations, folks exchanging numbers. So many great things came out of that in terms of those connections where we have those folks come back and tell their story on how they met that one person at a Love Squad event. Now they're business partners, or that's their new investor. And so it was that moment where I realized this is something I can create these spaces to have folks come together on a very small scale. We get caught up in big stuff on a very small scale to connect and really have meaningful, impactful conversations. And more importantly, great takeaways.
I mean, what you just described is a Harvard business case study. Like, really, I mean, using the resources that you have, identifying where and how to compete, right? Thinking through strategically, okay, using your voice, you're a talker, you can host, right? You have a network. Let's leverage that community. I mean, really putting that together in such a unbelievably creative way and a confident way. I mean, it kind of blows my mind, and I'm really excited for everyone here to take away all these gems from you. I want to turn the page to reinvention for a minute, because a lot of people are going through their career, and as we know these days, we all have different chapters. And yet, it's really important. Authenticity is a superpower of yours. It's really important to be consistent. So how do you balance staying consistent with always expanding? Those multi-hyphenates, it's like, how many is too many?
I think how many is too many is definitely something that's like an internal temperature check that folks have to give themselves. But when it comes to reinvention specifically, one of the things that I've learned in my career, and I started out 11 years ago thinking I was going to be a sideline reporter on ESPN. So I do want to let you all know, while we just celebrated, and you were all so wonderful in just celebrating all the things that she said that I'm doing now, I failed at my career trajectory. I thought 11 years from now, I'd be on ESPN. I'd be with Malika Andrews at the table. Like, that's what my dream was before Malika was there, right? And I love her. Sometimes those things don't happen the way that you want them to. And God has other plans for you. And what I didn't do was, while there was a pivot and a shift, I didn't stop moving forward. Forward is a pace. And I think that you said the word consistency. That's the answer to your reinvention question for me, is that sometimes you think you're going to go somewhere else. The only way to reinvent yourself is that you are committing to moving forward and pivoting, even when there are roadblocks. And along that career journey, people asked me, or told me what I was good at. I end up moving from where, yes, I co-host the SBs with Anthony Mackie. Great, that's in sport. But what I do is sport adjacent. I talk about sport. Olympic coverage at NBC. I do those things. So while the dream wasn't fulfilled immediately or exactly, it was fulfilled in a capacity that was different and unique for me. And that reinvention comes with consistency and moving forward. And so it's shifting the idea of what I've had of myself at the time into what I could be with the resources and access that I did have. And again, simply put, leaning into what people thought I was good at.
I mean, I really appreciate that. And I feel like, again, everybody can take that right with us going forward, moving forward.
This woman got my back. I don't know her, but she's been with me since we started, so thank you. She was like, you go, girl.
I think we're all here with you. So this is the 6th year of CCDC, and shout out to Adrian and the team for putting together an unbelievable week of programming, right? Cheyenne, Fran, love all of you, incredible. And I want to reflect for a minute as we're winding down what was an incredible week of powerhouse connections, lots of epiphanies, lots of unexpected, serendipitous meetups, in addition to lots of scheduled. How do you, as, again, a leader in the wellness community, as an incredible entrepreneur, as a cultural icon, as a source of great wisdom, how do you think about taking away all that we've learned here and bringing it back into where you're going forward?
Absolutely. While access to information is very much expensive, sometimes the inundation of information can be overwhelming and we leave away with nothing. So one of the things that I often ask folks that are going to sit on panels, for example, my agent Jordan and I were at a breakfast just now, and one of the women was like, I have to speak on a panel. And I said, well, what's your one key message? What's your one takeaway? Because folks only have the capacity, and fairly so, to remember one thing you said.
Hear you.
And so that is my response for this week. What's that one takeaway that you have? You might have 5, that's awesome. You may be able to retain 5, but what's that top headline takeaway? What's that top headline contact? And so that's what we talked about coming into this week, is like, who's that one person you want to meet? It may not be a name, it may not be a title, it may be a description. Who's that one person that you want to meet? Let that be that one takeaway that you actionalize after this week, because then you'll feel like it's all worth it. And so for me, that has been something for me coming in to say, what's the one thing I'd like to do or get done, or that one person I'd like to talk to before the week is over? All the others are an extra bonus, an added bonus. And so that's my key takeaway, is just finding, hey, what's that one thing?
It's great.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I love that centering, because I feel like, again, raise your hand if you have like a to-do list that's longer than your arm, right? All the business cards, all the LinkedIn connections. So that centering, and again, taking away, or here at the beach, you know, there'll be so many moments after this that we'll reflect on and hopefully smile and think, oh, I should do that, I should do that, I should do that. It's like popcorn, thinking about where to go from here, but really knowing that, again, as we get off our flights and start that journey home, thinking about that one key takeaway. I mean, that to me is a beautiful thing. And I'm going to do a quick wrap up, and then I have one final question for Ali here. But for me, I'm taking away a couple things from this conversation. So breaking your rule of one. But the bookshelf audit, that to me, superpower. Eating an elephant, one bite at a time, not literally, thank you. None of us are getting canceled. Sitting in your power and choosing impact versus power, right? And in terms of every moment and how you're going to make those choices, which sometimes are binary. Conversation as a catalyst for change. That needs a t-shirt. Keeping it spicy. Really reflecting on, you know, who we're spending time with, how we're fueling ourselves, fueling our minds. And then really, as we grow and expand and increase our power, keeping grounded in that authenticity, looking people in the eye when you meet them, and that real respect. So thank you for keeping it real here for me. I want to know, for our audience, how can we help you? How can we support you and your mission? This is a very powerful group here, and that's what we're here to do. So what's the call to action, Ali? What's the one thing?
So it's hard to ask for help 100% of the time. And we actually talked about this question in the back, and I was like, I got nothing. Let them do whatever they want to do. Like, it's their life. But sincerely, the way that you can help me is that while you have your, main objective, or one thing you want that is your key takeaway for this week, I truly encourage you to meet someone that is unlike you. And we stereotype when we walk in a room. We're like, oh, those are my people. Those are not my people. That person has something to say. That person is somebody because they have a title. I truly encourage you to get curious around a not your person, someone who doesn't have that title, someone who may need to have a conversation. And I think that is my call to action for you. While I would say, I would say like, I need something personally. The reality is, if you do that, it makes us all better. So next year when I come here, we've set a new standard. We've created new cultural movements at Cannes, and that is impactful. And most times, what I'm truly saying to you is to talk to somebody that don't look like you. And be intentional about it. Not like, we just happen to stand next to you. Be intentional about it. Like literally find someone in a crowd and go and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. This is what I do. What do you do? I think that's how you can help me, because that makes a space when I come back here safe for someone like me who can get, as much as you said confident earlier, I can look as confident as for sure, but I also too still deal with social anxiety. So when I walk in a space, if that is the new standard at Cannes, then you've made it better for me, and that is my call to action. So thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Give it up for Ali Love, everybody. Thank you so much.
Great job. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.